You guys talking about that? Well, that'd be cheaper. Oh. No. We're working a plan for that. So we had the conversations with PennDOT. And we told them what we wanted to do, and they said, okay, well then you make a plan and give it to us, and we'll talk. And so in essence, what I want to do is come in with a 3-foot cinder block wall with a cap on it, and then 2 pillars on each end. It'll be something less than 200 feet in length. And then we'll do chiseled one-face brick or cinder blocks, and then backfill the back side of it, and we grade it off, and then we can mow out before you. So Dell's been having some contractors out, and the concept is going to be they're already going to have equipment on the site. So have them use an excavator to dig a trench, and then bring the material in and backfill it. And then they'll save money because they're not going to have, to backfill a fence somewhere, a wall 3 feet high, somewhere between 100 and 200 feet long. That's going to be 100 trucks that they're not going to have to pay. Yeah. So. Check with Dell because he's already worked on it. We're on ready. Andy, are you ready? Okay, we're ready.
Evening, everybody. Plan is here. Good evening. We're going to go ahead and start with Mr. Coughlin. When he gets done, then we'll go into executive for personnel before we even call our meeting to order. So that's the plan. We'll do that. Go into the other room, the other board room, and have our discussion and come back out and call meeting to order. So the floor is yours, Mr. Coughlin.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Here we go. Okay. Here, you me okay? Yeah. I can't see, but as far as civil and site work, we're detailing the rain garden for the runoff on the south side of the Regional Skills Center. We're detailing the catch basins and the stormwater piping. Soil filtration tests are complete. We've located all the existing stormwater lines and their depths. We had that trace showing all the stormwater runoff not headed to the rain garden. We collected in the existing stormwater lines on site. We intend to submit the stormwater management plan next month. Architecturally, we're working on design development and construction documents simultaneously with an anticipated bid date of January and February of 2021. The budget appears to be on target with recent projects. I don't want anybody too excited, but I saw a couple of recent projects bid were about $20 less than what we have per square foot. So that gives me a good sign. I just hope our economy can keep rolling like this. If it stays like this, I feel very comfortable. Refining the layouts of the instructional and non-instructional spaces, working on laying out rooms for furniture and equipment. We're defining potential alternates with door hardware, roofing, windows. We're reviewing specific materials and evaluating like door hardware. One of the things that came up was using card swipes on all the doors. We're looking at that, which would be a potential alternate. Typically, we just do lever handles. Reporting information to the consultants who are going to proceed with their work, in particular windows and doors, toilet room layouts, and building wall sections. We're coordinating new infrastructure with new and existing conditions. Working with the kitchen consultant, Ken Kistler, on the culinary and kitchen areas. We're in the process of performing roof core tests. I kind of made a nice decision. I had a meeting this morning and I had to set Jim out. So he's out there in the rain on the roof this morning. So I lucked out on that. We intend to submit drawings and specs for a building permit next month, beginning in December. Out to bid in January and February. And start construction in 2021. As far as structural, soil compaction tests are complete. Design loads are established and the structural systems been identified. The footers are designed, structural steel frames are designed, and we're working on details. At this point, they're kind of at a wall because they're waiting for the MEP design to get all those loads. As far as HVAC, as you know, we went through that last week or a month ago. Existing conditions are shown, corresponding hatching and demolition locations near completion. New work design intentions are designated through a zoning plan and associated keynotes that detail the scope of work for all spaces and zones. This is in the process of being replaced with detailed ductwork and piping drawings. Details and schedules are complete for the base HVAC equipment. All base HVAC equipment has been sized and basis of design selections have been made. General hydronic flow diagrams and control diagram sequences of operation are complete, indicating the design intent. The specs for base HVAC equipment are complete. Plumbing, existing plumbing systems are shown and identified. Demolition has been identified as well. Domestic water piping is shown, all valves and fittings. Major equipment has been sized and scheduled. New sanitary and storm is in the process of being designed. General plumbing is complete. Fire protection, we have a flow test performed this week. Sprinkler zones and hazard level designated areas are on the plans. Sprinkler names are indicated. The general fire protection specs are complete. And lastly, electrical, existing conditions are shown and demolition plans are developed. Site demolition plan is nearly complete. We just need to accurately locate the existing generator and existing air cooled chiller. New site lighting calculations are complete and being reviewed. No locations are indicated on the plans yet. We're still waiting elevations from our office to coordinate the new building mounted lighting that will be there at the site. Interior lighting calculations are complete and indicated on the documents. We will need to understand the final programming of the kitchen area to fully finalize the lighting layouts. They are currently being reviewed. Power data, AV, and security are ongoing. We're waiting space programming from our office. Coordinate the layout of furniture arrangements and teaching stations. Electrical online diagram is still in the design development stage. George will be putting more time into that once he has the space program. Details are 90% complete. And the specs for electrical are 80% complete. Big items that need to be reviewed are security and access control. As you can imagine, that's what the big thing part of this, as well as the infrastructure. Questions?
Chris, could you give a timeline just one more time?
Sure. We plan on taking it to VIU end of November, beginning of December. And then we'll be out to bid in January and February. And what's going to dictate that, Andy, is how long it takes for VIU to review. One of the things we can do is we can put it out to bid while we're waiting. I don't typically like to do that because you don't want to worry about having VIU review in case they have something for the drawings after the project. So.
Couple of things, Chris. We're going to need to have time after we get done with the bid process to go back and consider whether we're going to have to make changes to this drawing or to the plans, designs. And we're going to need time to go out to all of the school boards. And dependent, I can't imagine going out and making a presentation to a school board and then them voting to approve something that night. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a delay there. I did talk with the superintendents, like I was asked to at the last meeting, to ask whether we should go out to bid before or after we get these board visits done. And the superintendent said that you should probably go out to bid first, but that the superintendents wanted to be able to come back to their boards to let them know in case they, just to avert them getting a surprise in the newspaper if they saw sort of a public posting or something like that. And then once we have the estimates and the designs done, then we can start the conversations about what to do next. I'm just concerned that that's not all going to get done by February.
What we can do is traditionally, in fact, we give the school district 60 days to award a contract. What I would suggest here, we can go 90 days or we can go 120 days. They give us 3 to 4 months. That would be, and they would hold their bid. So that way, we bid in January, bids come back in February, March, and that way you have April, May, June, maybe July, you want to go 120. I have gone more than 90 days.
Well, I think what the solution is would have to be approved by the JOC, but I just wanted to make sure we all understood there's a couple of constraints at play here.
Sure.
Dr. Walker, you're saying after it goes out for bid?
Yeah, because before then, we don't know what it costs.
Right.
This discussion came up after you left last month. And so we had a good discussion, trying to figure out timeline, because this is all a little different.
Sure.
We haven't approved it, and every district has approved it. So that's what Fred's talking about, and Andy especially.
And we don't want to go out there with just a ballpark.
No.
20% over
Right.
number, so.
No, and Chris is saying, $20 a square foot would be a significant cost change from what we're paying. I don't want to go out to school boards with a significant variance, positive or negative.
So what do you think? Is 60 days long enough to?
No.
60 days long enough to?
I would go 90.
I would suggest 90, 2 months flies by.
Problem is BIU is 2 months behind right now.
Well, we will have all December and January, and you got a week off in December. I know those guys have been working through the break.
Does that bring us in under your timeline to keep everything without hitting the next, losing my word here.
So,
Yeah, the
yeah,
next
so
one.
fine, because we get it in now, it's just BIU, it's under the old code.
So it depends on when we get it to BIU, not when we actually,
No,
okay,
when it's approved.
okay.
If we get the bids out there and we get them back, if we have 90 days to award, if we get them back the first level, if we got them to the districts and got approved, we can approve earlier to try to get more of that summer work done. So we're not into July for everything. We may not have to approve everything right away, but we can do some kind of a stagger if it's multiple vendors, contractors, something like that.
Well, there's going to be 4 crimes. It'll be general, HVAC, plumbing, electric. So it's going to be difficult to award anything
Without everything.
without everything. Right, I think you got to look at it. I do agree with you. I don't think you want to go to the even boards until you got the number. I mean, it's kind of a waste of time.
The only problem with that timeline is that hits us just about in perfect budget time. We'll have extra meetings for budgets and all that. That's,
But you're saying that this are going out in January, or that you should receive them in what, 30 days?
By state regulations, we have to have 21 days.
So I'm saying if you go out in January, as early as we know and be able to say, okay, go to our school board, our voting meetings, we can have a workshop, but our voting meetings usually at the end of the month, so that'd be end of February, even discuss it.
we're going to have to approve it out of here first.
Yeah, well, early.
Figure out contingencies.
Yeah,
Earliest would be end of February's meeting.
So, right, but then our board won't even see it
March,
till March.
April.
So do we call a special board meeting? Do we each ask for a special board meeting?
There's not going to be enough time in a 90-day term to get all the work done that needs to be done unless there's something special that's changed, like frequency of meetings.
Like I said, so I'm trying to say when we're receiving the bid, so when we can vote on it, then we can go to our board. That's what I'm trying to do, timeline for that. Earliest we'll get it, our meetings, I don't have a calendar for our next year's meeting.
One question that comes to mind is if we started meeting with boards basically after the review, we don't have to wait for the bids to come back. They're not going to have actual numbers, but we'll know what the project is overall. And then the only thing we'd be missing is the one sheet on what's the overall cost and then what's each district cost. But we could start, we're not asking for approval yet, just to start the process, because there's 11 boards you're going to have to get out and talk to. We could start that discussion, preliminary meeting, and then if a board wants to follow up with another meeting, that would be the negative, is you may have to make 2 trips. But some may be okay with just getting that info sheet and knowing what the cost is.
The best case scenario is that there's going to have to be 2 trips or two school board meetings to discuss this matter. One, they're going to need to have the conversation from our side pitching the project.
Right.
And they're going to want to have at least 30 days to have another meeting to come back and consider. They'll probably want to appoint a small ad hoc committee to look over the plans and so forth. So I'm seeing we got 60 days minimum chewed out of that 90 days in the best case scenario.
When does the 9th start?
90 days starts the day the bids were received.
Once we receive them, so, okay.
So let's say January 30th.
Do you think there's a lot of selling that needs done? I mean, everybody knew their number going into this, right?
I think,
But the problem is everybody's budget's a lot different than it was 6 months ago.
well, I think we don't need a lot of selling, but I think they'd like to see it.
Sure.
I'd have them come out of a workshop versus our voting meeting.
Yeah, or just our work
Sure.
study. I don't think you have to resell anybody on it, but I think it seems right when it comes to budgets, they're a little bit different. And is everybody still committed to it? Because if there's one school that's not, then what are we doing?
I don't know about everybody else's school, but we actually have a line item budget for this in the
So do we.
safety fund.
Yeah, we plan for it. Hopefully it works out.
The thing that is going to be different here though as well, some schools have taken certain courses of action. It's not been uniform. So we got big differences there. And not all schools are going to approach the funding the same way. So some schools have already saved and they're going to pay cash, and other schools are going to need to borrow money. And, when we started down this path last year, the conversation was a pooled loan, a pooled bond kind of thing. And so I don't know how much of that we have to get into before we sort of quote approve the project, but I think we need to have a firm approval from all these 11 school boards saying this project is X number of dollars and you can go ahead. We'll worry about the money ourselves. We somehow have to get to that point.
Tim, where were you last in that? I know you've done some work on that. Are you anticipating the ones that want to go to a bond, that it would be one bond?
There are so many different variables amongst the various districts. I'm not clear where we stand on that. And as indicated, budgets have changed. I don't know whether they've used some of that money or not. I mean, some districts have the money already set aside, some districts don't. We'll see. I think once we have a determination as to whether or not going forward with the project, if they need to finance, we can finance. Sufficient time for
It's not how you feel committed to that. I think you're better off taking the loan once you know the cost.
yeah, once you know the number.
Then you know the number.
Well, we'll know the number because before we have approval for the project, we have to know the number.
Right.
So
For sure.
we got lots of time. But
Right, that price should be.
So what was your original square footage price estimate?
It was for the overall building.
Yeah,
It's like 260.
All right. So you're saying it could be, it'd be pleasant if it came back at 230 a square foot.
That's exactly what I thought the other project was coming in at. I broke it out.
I'm just saying, well, why can't the superintendents talk to their boards right now in November? And just kind of fool everybody and
start the process.
start the
talking
process
about
of it.
Yeah. I don't think.
We got a couple guys on our board that don't want to spend any more money ever right now because of stuff that's going on. We don't know how many substitutes we're going to need this year. About 8 million. So why can't the superintendent at least pull the board right now and just say, hey, are we still committed to our number?
Cole, you said something.
No, I agree with him. Start the conversation early.
Well, there's no reason why we couldn't. I mean, in our.
Yeah, I'm not the president.
I would say, well, but like in our board, we have a special every month. I have to tell what's going on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, that would be the perfect time to broach the subject.
The superintendents will certainly have a seat at the table for the conversation, but the decision makers are going to be the school boards.
Right.
So it seems most appropriate to have the school boards at least get a litmus test as to whether they're in or out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it'd be, although our superintendent does make recommendations, it's really,
Yeah.
it's not her call. It's our call. So I would say, I would sit down and have a conversation with her beforehand, so that she can, bring up any points that I forgot or didn't say right, but she could, just be there as backup when the actual elected member is talking about it. But yeah, no, I think definitely the school board member and the superintendent should be working hand in hand during that conversation.
So I have a meeting with our superintendents on November 6th. I don't know what day of the month the school board meetings typically happen, but I can certainly bring that up again there. And frankly, I can also send out an email and talk to them tomorrow. You know, so that's fine too.
The 6th is the first Thursday.
That would be the day of.
All he means,
That's
all of our
right.
meetings are mostly gonna be after that.
Yeah.
Your meeting during the day.
They're on Friday, is it a Friday usually?
I was gonna say
It's
that would
usually
be
on
our
a Friday,
Yeah,
but
I'm
the
sorry.
IU is now trying to minimize the amount of time that the superintendents are out of the office. So they're trying to do a superintendent's group from the IU's perspective, and then we go right into the PAC meetings.
Oh,
So that's first Friday, not first Thursday. First
Oh,
Friday is
first
the
Friday.
6th.
Oh, so it's the day, that would be the day after, I think, a few of our meetings, right?
I don't know.
Am I mistaken?
ours is always the second Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday unless it's election year, then it's first Tuesday, third Tuesday. Yeah, so.
Wow.
Well, just like here, our board meeting here is on a Tuesday and next February.
Thursday, yeah.
No, next,
Oh, Tuesday, yeah.
it's next on Tuesday.
Oh, right.
On the election thing, reorganization is always different. You have to have it, so there's a regulation. You have to have it voted.
First Monday of December or something.
Yeah,
For
our
normal.
first Wednesday in December.
John, obviously Mill Creek's got the most dollars. I mean, gonna have to invest in. What do you think about timeline and?
Well, I think it should be fine, whatever the cost is.
Okay, actual cost before there's any more discussions,
Well,
per se?
something close. Something that we can rely on.
Do you think Mill Creek would be able to discuss it in February, vote on it in March? If we prove it in February, if your meeting's after ours, which I have to have with the calendar, would it be possible for Mill Creek to evaluate
We've
it?
had so many special meetings in the past. That nothing's impossible.
Good. Like I said, I think our board already, as long as the money is, if they don't go over what they said, or they're pretty close, I think we're Gerard, I think, in for it.
Same.
But if we come back, like you said, we have to know the numbers. If it comes back and tells us, oh, you have cut material, can't even get this material.
Yeah, but Chris, it sounds like your preliminary numbers, that 34 million is a good number.
Based on 250, right?
Well, I'm gonna give you, the 250 is for new, I have numbers right in front of me. The average per square foot that we have is 228.50.
For renovation?
That's for the whole building, it's new and existing. Now, recently did Career Center, came in at $200.53 a square foot.
We're not gonna-
Correct, that's one actually. So there's a little bit of money there. Mind you, we got stormwater management to do, we have some other things we have to do. And then part of that whole 35 million also had equipment that's outside that. But our project cost was 25.5. Where we're at.
So your anticipation is to stay under the 34 million?
That was my director.
Tell me the 25.5 again, what's that?
25.5 is the cost of the construction.
Okay,
The additional costs were the soft costs, those were contingency, building work, things, furniture, equipment. That's everything on top of that. So if we come in at that 25.5 or less,
you're 8 or 9 million for your soft costs for equipment, furniture.
contingency, building permit. You bought a building permit, lately, it's gonna be through the roof. There have gotten so expensive. It's ridiculous.
Schools, no different, huh?
Nope, wouldn't be great. No, it's worse sending it to the state, believe it or not. I think they don't want to do it anymore. Believe it or not, labor and industry, it's 6% of the construction cost, just like I do. And all they do is review drawings. 6%. And then you go to EIU's half that, they're at 3. So apparently the state doesn't want to do it.
Because one of the things that we talked about in the past is the length of construction. And it's going to take 2 years to do this.
About a year and a half to 2 years. That's
Okay.
correct. Where you go through the following summer.
So this bid is going to incorporate that knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
You can't buy this piece of plasterboard for $3. Because in a year and a half, you're going to have to buy it again.
Well,
It'll be a different cost.
that's the risk they take. Either we gotta buy it all up front. Some contractors, we've seen the pitch before where they didn't buy everything up front. They're paying more later, and it's worked the opposite, like they made out because it costs less. So, Katrina, James Wilson, price of plywood, triple. It was overnight copper, quadruple. You know, but they all gotta put that in, hopefully nothing ever like that happens again, because then at that point, they were just guessing. They didn't have our numbers. So,
Is the schedule for that construction been reviewed? with the administration?
yes.
So we know what's going to be down, what's going to be up, ceilings down and whatever, right?
Well, that's the beauty of the plan, is one of the things, we go with new construction first, then move your kids into that. And then we renovate the building, move your kids out of that area. And then move them into the renovated space.
Can I add in here? We talked about this 2 meetings ago with our PAT superintendents. And one of our superintendents was very unhappy that we were having the conversation. They wanted to talk about doing phasing in here. Now, remember that conversation when we had it, we had invited all the superintendents, all of the business managers in the JOC to have that joint meeting to talk about this, and no one came. And so during that conversation, we talked about the efficacy of phasing this, and so our superintendent that was really not happy with this conversation wanted to know why couldn't we phase it? And so I tried to explain that the additional costs, if we don't build the new space, then we would be trying to come up with some way to bring in temporary structures to have teaching, and we'd have to heat them and toilets and all that. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that when you're talking about this project scope, you're talking about doing it all at once. And we've not been successful at getting everybody in the room at one time to have the conversation about phasing. So we're, as a JOC, talking about doing this project all at one time under the idea that we build the new space first and then move into it. And I'm not sure that everybody understands it that way. Otherwise, the costs are going to go up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That saved us money significantly.
I understand that. But if people aren't privy to the conversations as they're unfolding, they get blindsided by this kind of stuff, and then the defenses go up, and then it's harder to make your point.
Because 20 years ago, when we talked about phases.
That's right. One, we talked about 3 phases.
Right.
And that kind of went away, when people were gonna do it all at once, did it not.
We've brought the scope down, because at one point we were talking about skill center and connecting the two, and that's where a lot of your phases, we're dealing with that. We're not, we've scaled it back. A year and a half project, in my mind, is some phasing. You're gonna build new,
Right.
you're gonna move certain areas in there, you're gonna demo, redo certain areas, move, and so it's kind of phasing, but it's
It's not separate.
one phase after another, and we're moving forward with all of it.
Correct,
Continuous construction.
correct. You did it now.
Will the whole building be demoed at one time? No. So,
No, I think one of the things we talked about too is, you gotta pull the ceilings out in order to get the infrastructure up above. What's difficult to do with that is how we're taking for certain spaces, while other spaces are supposed to come back with phase 2 and undo what we just did. You know, you pay for things twice, 2 times, 3 times.
Right.
But we did look at that, and that was a $75 million project, I think. It was big.
Yeah, this seems considerably more scaled down than when I first got onto my part.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Because we had a connection between the 2 buildings.
Uh-huh.
So at that time, I think it was 75 or 80 million. What we were looking at, so we scaled quite a bit back. It basically did what they need.
I don't know what the first plans look like, but there's every bit of 150 yards or more between the two buildings. If they were gonna enclose that in some kind of a space, that'd be a major project.
It was huge.
All of your new would be between there, but that's a lot of new still.
That's right.
You're right. Any other questions for Chris?
Thank you for having everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
So when are you reporting back? Because we don't have a meeting next month. So by the time we meet again, you should have plans to BIU.
Going out to bid for your next meeting. For December.
Well-
First week in December.
We're about the middle of December. You're gonna be to BIU. You won't have anything back yet for BIU.
If we did, I'd be shocked.
What's going to BIU, the designs for, or a request for a construction permit or what?
To request for a building permit, and that means that we're setting all the drawings and all the specifications for their review.
All right, so what's the approval point before those drawings go out? Somebody, who's going to give the formal, okay, this, we'll stand behind this project? Me? I'm fine to do that. I just want to be really clear because I don't want anybody to feel like they got blindsided. I don't want to overstep my boundaries.
It's the superintendent and their head of facilities. These are the last couple of people that look at
Building committee,
Renovation committee.
renovation.
That's fine. I just,
it. So if you send drawings and specs to look over prior to, and then we can make any changes you need. That's the one thing I do have to emphasize. If we're making any changes, those changes need to be made prior to bid. So if there's anything we need to change, we have to do it while bidding. I hate to do that. It can be done. I prefer it be done before that. But after that, it's a change order.
Well, then as soon as you get a setting, a set ready of drawings, that we'll have to have a renovation committee meeting and get through that to make sure that what you've done is what that committee wants.
and,
You do, however, keep a 4% contingency, right?
We continue.
Oh, we do? Okay.
I think you have to have 10 or 11%.
Oh,
We've
no, really?
got almost 15%
Okay.
for contingency, because that's building permit, civil work, geotech work, potential change orders, and then also one thing you should start talking about too, I don't mean to prolong this, is clerk of works. What I'd love to do is to get clerk of works involved before it goes out to bid, so they have the opportunity to see the drawings and specs. I know it's gonna be too much for them.
We
Okay.
have interest in that. We've already.
I definitely think it's something we should prior to award.
Clerk of the works typically embedded in the cost of the project or no?
Part of the contingency.
Do you have any idea, non-binding idea, what kind of money that might be on a $32 million project?
For about a year and a half or 2 years, you can be looking at anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000.
50 to 150.
Basically,
I'll take it.
Full time.
Worth every penny.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
was gonna say, I
full-time
think
person
we paid
here for that.
we paid ours, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we just paid him annual salary, did we not?
You did.
Yeah.
I think it was
It was like 50,000 a year is what we did.
with benefits.
Right.
We
Right.
actually, Harvard made Jim an employee.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did, yeah. We actually made our clerk of works an employee of Harbor Creek School District, and then we hired him on it was like a contract for the scope of time. And then we paid him an annual salary and he got benefits through that. So
Full time.
Yeah.
Like Andy said. I mean,
And there-
less.
I'll be honest with you, there are times he was there way more than 40 hours a week. I mean, there are times he was literally there probably 60 or 70 hours a week. And so that might be a good way to go
You
about
want
it,
us
because
to
I think that saved us money.
Name that
honestly.
person when? Before it even goes to,
Before we award.
before we award,
Because what I'd like to do is have that person be familiar with drawings and specs
help review.
before our first meeting. You know, so that they don't walk in blindsided. So I know.
Yeah, I think they offer a great service. I would think we'd want to during the design phase, honestly.
She could have been soon.
I mean, they're gonna be responsible for looking at this, and making sure it's right, blah, 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 blah. And it's best to get them in there ahead of time, so they have an input, they know what's going on.
But if we do that, we have to, I'm sorry, if we do that, I think it would really behoove us to know for sure that every district is on board before we hire somebody, because if they're not, you're hiring somebody at 50,000 a year or what have you.
You can do it by the hour. You can hire someone by the hour. This isn't, I mean, this is a big job, but it's concentrated. You don't have to do a lot of travel or anything like that. But
Yeah.
you're designing it now, you're paying them now. So rather than wait, if it's after the fact, it's not the best scenario. It's still good, but it's not the best.
John, are you thinking that we would get a commitment to work, to secure a clerk of the works that would start working on an hourly basis until this project is ready to start? As opposed
That's
to,
an option, sure.
well, I'm just wondering, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense as I'm sitting here hearing this initially to bring somebody on full time if the construction's not gonna start for 8 months.
That's
Okay, but it's good to get them in on the design phase. They don't have to stay here.
Yeah,
Contribute, then walk away.
yeah.
Wait. That's all. They're not gonna be here 40 hours a week.
I just,
What if they can't come back when it's time to start?
And
What
I
if they
don't
take
know.
another
I'm
job?
just saying, it's a good thing to do. Based on our experience. I mean, these people are worth the gold.
So
I
can we have Chris get a couple names together and maybe either the renovation committee or Fred do some kind of interview and let's get some idea. I think starting hourly right away with once construction starts, doing some kind of an annual or monthly salary, however, can we interview and get some comfort level with somebody? One or two people, and then in December, when we meet in December, we could award that, start in essence paying hourly. At that point, I mean,
And we should have a copy of the prints to take to a rough, a good floor print to take to all our boards. So we'd have the clerk of work and a nice floor plan we could take to our school board.
Can we approve that hourly rate tonight?
do we know what that rate is?
Yeah, $40 an hour. That's average.
That's ours.
That's average clerk of the works consulting fee outside of, it's $40 an hour.
Plus benefits?
No.
Why don't we wait till we actually do the contract?
Well, the problem is that they're not going to look, we don't need it until December. They're not going to, you've been saying that the building committee could just vote on that?
I don't think they're gonna actually start until, because BIU needs, it doesn't them, well, you were talking about in the plan.
They should,
He's
they
talking
should,
about in the planning.
that clerk of the works should look at those plans, even if it's somebody that we're not going to use before it goes to BIU. That's a whole different set of eyes looking at it. 3 people that Chris is going to recommend all should look at the plan just from a different level or a different view before they go to BIU.
Tim, couldn't we
We might have to
approve?
have a special meeting.
What's wrong with a special meeting in November?
Have a special meeting, if everything's in place, you can have a special meeting.
So do that, get whoever they want to do, and then we'll call a special meeting, and people want to drive out, we can zoom in, and we know how to do that now.
Yeah, we did.
Hiring for hourly wage.
I think we need to work that out.
I think we need to draft a contract.
But- Let's get the idea.
Because
I'm gonna
you can have more than one scenario as to how the compensation. I've seen various scenarios, hourly compensation, salary, whether it's a company, whether it's an employee, whether it's, there's so many variables that we have. Clerk of the work, and how you do it, and that's how you want to do it. That's why I'm suggesting we wait until see the contract, have a special meeting.
I'll get you 3 names.
Well,
I don't think we'll have anything before our summer.
if we do, we can have a meeting if we need to keep the process going, if we.
And I think we hard pressed to get everything done by or 14th of December.
But they're wanting to bring somebody in to look at that.
I know that,
before we even
but
get the BIU.
It's all gonna be together again. But we have to look at Princeton too. If we see something we don't really, nobody likes completely, where would we have a clerk of work look at something, we're gonna say, oh, we don't like this anyway.
Well, why that'd be part of their interview process anyways. They stop up here, they have a set of plans, they're in the office. Dr. Walker sits down, talks to them, that's part of him interviewing
Yeah,
them
well, we
to
have,
work with them.
I'm saying, none of our other boards have looked at this stuff.
Right, we might have
We didn't get to look at it.
No, I'm saying we might have 7 different people that Chris would recommend, and if some of them might.
I like your idea of having a salary for somebody that start looking up earlier.
Let's consider another approach here. Chris, when do you anticipate having your drawings ready for a first reveal to the renovation committee?
Well, we're ready to go to BIU.
When is that?
That's gonna be the end of November.
Okay, so I would envision that we would call, maybe even have you present those drawings to the renovation committee in November. Between now and November, you're gonna send me a list of some potential clerks of the works. And then I'll start the conversation both with Sam and with the members of the renovation committee. And then we can sort of see if we can coordinate, triangulate on that one meeting. Because we'll still have some time. How long after you reveal those drawings to us do you have or do you need before you actually drop the things into BIU for the permit?
I would drop it in for a permit immediately. We make those changes while it's at BIU. And that's what we have to do.
Well, we might need to ask for a week or two, just to give us a little bit of breathing time.
Okay, well, we can postpone it a week.
But he's under the gun.
The,
Because
the,
he's got
the
a
problem
timeframe.
is, Fred, when you give the BIU, what it does, it goes into a special file and it sits there for about a month. They don't even open it. So you're saying during that time, we can, you're getting your spot into where they're gonna look at you, is what it is. Honestly, they don't look at anything for a while.
So in the worst case scenario, are you saying that we could come in before they start their review 30 days later and give them a substitute set of drawings and say we rethought the whole project? Just worst case scenario. Okay, that's all I want to know. So, okay, well, no, that's fine because that tells us what kind of time we have. So let's triangulate for the end of November on you revealing these drawings. And that still leaves us almost 6 weeks before you're going to drop those drawings to have conversations among this group about a clerk of the works. And in the meantime, you're going to send me a list of them and then we'll move on. Because we're spinning on our conversation now.
Just so you know that BIU reviews by 6 days.
Okay, so that's even better.
After 3 or 4, they might start asking some questions because they pulled it out of that
That's
special
exactly
file.
right.
Okay,
They might have pulled it out.
Maybe.
That just means we don't go out for bid at least till March. Based on the time, based on meetings.
That's why we don't want to wait to get it
I was
on
gonna
their
say, we don't
desk.
really want to wait
No,
because.
January, February, are the best months
Exactly.
to bid this out.
We really want to get it bid as soon
And
as
it looks like
possible.
you do have a lot of interest. Our office is receiving a lot of phone calls about people interested in this project. We're all running, Mill Creek jobs hitting, this job hitting, we're all anxious.
well, my only concern is getting too far out in front of the train with this project, because remember, we haven't cleared the hurdles where any one school district can stop this whole thing.
Right.
So when we talk about you're under the gun, we're under the gun, everybody's under the gun here. So I don't want an artificial sense of momentum to bowl us over and then we're already committed. If we don't do this project tomorrow, we're committed for $675,000. And we're talking about spending more money. So I just want to make sure that we're not having to have the project approval with a gun to our head. That's all. So I'll keep it moving on our side. And the timeline that I think I'm hearing is you're going to come back here in the end of November. And in the meantime, you're going to send me a list of 3 clerks of the works, and then I'll keep it moving from there on the conversation with the clerks of the works. Other than maybe let you know who we select, I don't know that, I'll just stay in touch with you, but I don't know that you would be in that approval process.
If it's somebody you're using on a regular basis that's interested in this project, they might take cursory look at it with us anyways.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Just to,
That's what I'm saying.
even before approval, before they're getting paid, just if they know that's a potential.
Right.
So now let me go back to Dennis. Here's my understanding, what Fred just laid out, but we're gonna take, the renovation committee is gonna meet and go over those plans in detail to make sure it's what we've set out for, with, I think you and Joe did a lot of the preliminary work, so they're gonna know that, but committee's gonna get together, look at that. And that's gonna go as soon as we can get, within a meeting, a day or two, that can get down to BIU. You're still not gonna have plans to go to your board yet. We've got to get that process started, and then we can start having, you're not gonna have numbers yet, because we're not a bid, but you'll have those then to start talking to your.
I'm trying to look at realistic dates, because he says November, we have Thanksgiving in there. The last day of November is the 30th, and that's Monday, I'm thinking, if I recall, I don't have a calendar from me. So as soon as you're gonna be even looking at them, will be the first week in November, December. And we meet on the 14th, which is, the 14th is a Tuesday, and that's, yeah. So we'd have to be either the first, realistic, the earliest we'll ever be able to meet the drawings listed will be the first weekend this December.
But by that time,
After
they're already
let's
gonna
say you looked at them this November 30th, and you say, yeah, they look great. They don't have it, and we found it correct. So we meet on that. Let's say just say for Thursday. So we meet on that Thursday, which would be the 3rd, and we can vote on that for a special meeting. That's as early as I can see.
Vote on what?
The clerk of the works.
Oh, if we're.
First you looked at the plans and you're happy with them. Now you're gonna vote on the person to look at them, clerk of the work look at them on the 3rd. They'll look at them over and we can, on the 14th, we can say, all of us can vote on the agenda that we're happy with them. And then go to our boards. The next week, I actually have board meeting next week, and then we'll say, next school board on there, here's the drawings, we voted on. That's just a scenario design. That's as fast as I can calculate in my head as possible to follow the date line. And that's tight.
But we're not gonna go to all the school boards and say, we're getting ready to submit it. We've already submitted to BIU at that point.
Yeah, right. 'Cause
We
you
don't
look
have
at
bids yet.
this example, you're looking at them on the 30th and the 30th. And then we have a special meeting, vote on them. We agree these plans are good, and we're gonna clerk work, look at these. They'll be looking at them. And then we vote approve it on the 14th. Then we can take it to our board and say, this is what we approved. Is that conceivable dates? I don't know when everybody else's board meeting, but our board meeting does fall after the 14th one.
It's conceivable. I don't know what we're voting on in December for plans though. We don't know anything. It's already been presented to BIU. We don't need to board approve that. We don't have to take it back. I think in our December meetings.
We approve the plans. We have to approve the plans.
That's what could go out in December, is this set of plans to each school district.
Right, we
Sure,
approve
okay.
it, the plan that we approved.
Yes.
We're voting on that, because we want the clerk of the work to look them over and say, by the way, you guys don't have enough doors. Your doors are all supposed to be 4 foot wide, and every door on it is 3 foot wide. And you miss that. Okay. That's just an example.
Yes.
Because we want the person, the engineer looking at it. I know when I look at drawings, stuff like that, I miss stuff all the time. And I'm like, I only have like 5 minutes to look at some. These are more than 5-minute drawings to look at. Huh?
Per page, man.
Chris, if you would be prepared to present to facilities or the renovation committee as early in November as you can, and then in the meantime, get me a list of clerk of the works.
I appreciate it. I'm just like my dollar safe, and I'm trying to figure. It's like my job.
We've already been told to cancel Thanksgiving, so now we got something to do.
Too late. I'll be on.
Any last minute questions for Chris?
You brought that up yourself. Don't blame us.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, everyone.
Don't blame us at all. You brought up that. You didn't care to give out.
All right, let's go into executive for personnel. Let's mask up and move over to the.
Thank you. I've been trying to work on these dates for the last 5 years.
Sure,
Trying
right,
to
no problem.
figure out the three.
I can fix
You'll lay in
Well,
bed
it's the
tonight
last-
thinking about those dates.
Huh?
You'll lay in bed tonight thinking about that.
I always do that. I feel like, yeah. Nothing's easy. Boss says, did you get this done in one day? What are you supposed to do?
It's all good. It's cheap, yeah. This is.
Yeah.
Binder. Okay, because normally we put the agendas in types of binders, but.
Remember, I wanted to. take my phone
Exactly.
and look through it, so-
Exactly.
Yep, no problem. I'll leave it here for next time.
Having fun? Where'd Andy go?
Dell, I assume he'll be right back.
Okay.
I think he just took a restroom break.
Yeah, no problem.
Would you mind turning the presenter camera toward
Or two?
where the superintendent of record and the solicitor sit? Or maybe Andy's on his way back in now.
Right there. Go for it.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Andy, do you have the agenda on the screen?
Yeah, it's on the screen. I'm still using it myself.
Thank you. Glad to see that.
Back.
No problem.
You just keep going on, that little
Nobody else came.
Hey, nobody else left.
That's true.
You're welcome. You got to take them there one. And that one for lunch.
Okay, we have 12 minutes. Did I say something? We get out here.
We can do it. We can do it. That was the thing started at 8, the debate. There was something else on that. That, just as good crew.
I haven't watched any news. I assume they were supposed to have the whole noon.
Yeah, I tried to look up the news and she got through there.
You did.
She did?
Went through.
Not by the Senate.
Oh,
The committee. It was reported out of committee though.
but the Senate's going to go today too?
No, they have to wait. It's gonna be what, Monday or something.
Yeah.
They're so long. They have to
Did you
wait.
see what they did?
No, did they?
Yeah, none of them, none of the Democrats showed up.
Here, what?
You get pictures.
They've been watching baseball games. And football games.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Please join me for a moment of reflection. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Dinsmore?
Here.
Mr. Bucksby?
Here.
Ms. Rostanek?
Here.
Ms. Spring? Here. Mr. Renfro?
Here.
Mr. Placido?
Here.
Mr. Lewis absent. Mr. Ring?
Here.
Mr. Gilbert also sent his regrets. And Ms. Reed? Here.
Number 2, we've got the agenda approval and the amendments. We got A, B, C, D, and E. Motion to approve the agenda and the amendments.
Motion.
Second.
Dinsmore.
Any discussion, any of these? We'll discuss them as we get to them, obviously, also. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Got the minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Student accomplishment highlights. Is there, well, we don't need a motion, we just, hear those. Is Joe zooming in tonight at all?
Joe is on Zoom. He's in his office. This is typically Sandy Carr and Lisa Scalise's section. Joe, can you join us?
Fell asleep.
I'll get him in.
Evening. Can you hear us, Joe?
Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
Hi, Joe.
It's nice to see everybody this evening. Those are the student of the month that we do, and of course, they follow our Beatitudes. And then, of course, Sandy Carr is going to talk about the other student recognition, which would be the National Technical Honor Society. Usually, we have a nice evening with the Technical Honor Society recognition, but again, this year, because of COVID, it's going to be more of an in-house presentation. So Sandy will talk more about that right now.
Good evening, everyone. We wanted to recognize for our student highlight, our National Technical Honor Society members. You may be finding out slightly before they do. Letters just went out this week, but we have 18 students being inducted this year. And as you can see, we have at least one from every school district, which is a nice thing to have. And we also want to highlight the 4 National Technical Honor Society students that remain from last year. And they are also the 4 officers. And we're very proud of those students. There's some pictures there, and they will be our leaders for that National Technical Honor Society group and helping with the induction of the new members. So we want to highlight those students. And again, they're in National Technical Honor Society based on attendance, grades at both sending school and at ECTS, and their community and school involvement. So we're very proud of those students, and we're very proud that we have one from each district. That should make everybody smile.
Very good. Thank you, Sandy. Moving on to guest and public comment. Are there any guests out there, Andy, that want to speak to the board or anything? Everybody's flagged. Empty chairs. All right, important items coming to ECTS. That's you, Dr. Martha.
This is me, and the important things that we're working on right now have a lot to do with our goals, in particular working with the superintendents on the direction of mechatronics and drone technology. That'll be another conversation this next PAC meeting, and with their support and approval, we'll be moving forward with that in full gear. The other important items coming to ECTS are really some of the challenges that we're now starting to encounter with staffing and COVID cases here. This is becoming a very encompassing challenge for our school. But it's not just our school, it's all the other school districts. So I just want to make sure that we keep that in perspective.
Very good, thank you. Moving on, number 7, operations. We got first reading of the following policies, policy 103 and 104. And I also have a motion to accept the donation of a 65-amp plasma cutter from Peak Industries to be used in the MTF lab. Somebody like to move all those?
So moved. Very good. Nicole, second.
Any discussion or questions about any of those? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Financial items. Got your reports. You have time to review those. Down if someone wants the motion G there for all the above.
So moved. Very good.
Second.
Any discussions or questions on any of those? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 9, administrative services and human resources. Got administrative services and human resource report. We got some resignations and retirements. Got some hiring, and I'm assuming that's just a corrected rate, was the wrong rate that we approved before. That's per contract, I believe, probably. So that's what 1 and 2 and 3 are. And then we have a motion to accept the addition of a non-bargaining unit part-time confidential secretary and job description. Somebody like to move as many of those as you want. If you want to leave off one and discuss or move them all.
What's the total cost of the part-time position?
I think we need.
Yeah, let's move it in second, then we can discuss them. We can also. Thank you, Ed. Is there a second?
Second, Dennis, Melissa.
All right, so questions?
Question. Why is the item number 1 or I is not related to a probation rate where the other 2 are?
I can address, well, H, this is an HR report. Kath, go ahead.
I am with an existing employee that transferred to that position.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I is an existing employee. She transferred into a new position. She was already an employee of ECT.
Thank you.
So probationary would be a brand new employee. If they transfer, they don't have another probationary period. We already know that.
So brand new employees make 15 cents an hour more than,
Different position.
okay.
We transitioned from a manager to a secretary.
Okay,
It is not an administrative, how would you say it?
I see, okay.
It is not, it is not a disciplinary action.
Other questions? Andy, did you have one there?
What was the total cost of what's part-time position, the new part-time position?
That's on a pay scale. Kat, do you have a number for that? It would be part-time. It would not involve benefits or that. It would be consistent with our other secretarial pay rate, and that's already defined. It's about, well, it's about that $16 an hour.
What's the total cost?
How many hours you?
We're asking for 20 or 24 hours, not to exceed 29 per week, because that's the cutoff for benefits. We would recover these resources from retirements, and so we would not ask for resources, additional resources from the school districts.
How many days a year? One. How many days a week?
Are you doing the math, Andy?
Trying to.
Thank you.
Just need to know fact.
So, but
The number of days per year.
Yeah.
I think it would be
To what?
28
You know why we need this? I mean, these are part-time right now. This is brand new position, correct?
Well, no, this is moving to reinstate something that was here as a full-time position earlier, prior to my arrival. And I don't know all of the history about how and why and when that position went away, but it did go away. And so now what we're trying to do is to reflect the fact that the previous director and the previous administrative staff were doing quite a bit of administrative secretarial kinds of work. And the new HR director, or the administrative services director, and I both have needs for some confidential support that would not be embedded within the union, but not enough to warrant a full-time position. So we're talking about part-time to deal with some of those confidential things. Actually, much more with Kat than with me.
But you would be adding headcount, because this position does not exist right now.
That's correct.
What's the number, Andy?
Hold on.
It's popular, everybody's texting.
225, 225 days.
225 days a year?
1641 times 29 hours a week.
No, not 29 hours a week.
That would be maximum.
That would
I'm
be,
saying the worst case scenario. Right? 1641 times 29. Times 52. Or no, so let's see. How many weeks are in 225 days?
divide by 7. But again, we're talking 20, maybe 24, not 29. So that's going to increase the cost by 30% if you're putting in 29.
32 weeks. 32 weeks. 32. 128 hours. That worst case scenario. 15.2 gross.
That's at 29 or less.
That's at 29.
And then with,
15,200.
$12,000 to $15,000.
With benefits or without benefits?
it doesn't matter, there is
I
technically,
said no benefits.
well, there's actually benefits on there, you don't, you're including. If they're getting
I know
if you're getting $16 an hour, you pay social security, another time and half of that, plus your taxes, so it's probably around $20 an hour.
Total labor burden is $20 an hour.
I'm making
So 18,000.
approximate.
It's under 20,000.
I can give approximations, not exact.
But the positive of that is you can take your higher paid administrative people and keep them doing administrative and relieving some of that, what they can do.
Kind of worth this out. I mean,
Well, this conversation has been on the table since I've arrived here. The administrator, and actually we had this conversation as part of the hiring process that my predecessor was proud of generally referred to himself as the best secretary in the building because he prided himself on doing a lot of the things like correspondence and typing letters and setting his appointment calendars and that kind of thing. Additionally, Natalie, who was here, was doing a lot of that kind of work as well. Now, my understanding is that there were 3 or so positions that went away at one point in time. When my predecessor was concerned, there were going to be positions leaving here if Mill Creek pulled out, and those positions were never added back.
Mill Creek what?
Pulled out. There was a conversation at some point in the history that Mill Creek could leave the consortium, and so
Right, it goes back to that, that's where 10 years ago or whatever that point in time was, there was discussion. So anytime somebody retired or something, if they could move that position around, split some of that up, they weren't filling it, which is fine if you can get that work done. Now it's to the point where some of that work isn't able to get done in the time.
Is that right? Some of the work isn't getting done.
we have our hands more than full, particularly given this pandemic. I don't think the JOC understands just how much bandwidth that pandemic is consuming of the administration.
I think everybody knows. I know how much is consuming my job, so it can't be any less for yours.
Very good.
Right, it's common, that this way, it's an opportunity.
I guess the biggest thing is, I don't know what we should be adding.
I will say, Harbor Creek just added a pandemic coordinator. We paid
Yeah.
80,000 or whatever. If they're doing the job of what we're paying an $80,000 a year person
That's
for,
right.
then $20,000 is a drop in the bucket to me. If it takes something off his plate and he gets to continue to do the job of a pandemic coordinator, I feel that's worth it. It's a very lopsided trade-off to me. It's definitely worth it.
I didn't hear a pandemic coordinator.
Pardon me?
I didn't hear a pandemic coordinator.
No, they're not hiring a pandemic coordinator.
No.
Fred and Joe are doing the job of a pandemic coordinator. And that is a very all-consuming job from what our pandemic coordinator does.
That was a requirement in our health and safety plan mandated by PDE that the superintendent and or director be the primary pandemic coordinator, and they had a choice whether or not they were going to do that or rely on an adjutant. So we try to use our secretary as much as we can, but we're dealing with these things multiple cases a day.
It's a lot, I gotta say, because our pandemic coordinator has had to call me 5 times this year. So, and I can't, and I'm just one person.
And that's actually a confidential secretary who's doing that. Somebody calls in, telling they got COVID-19, and she'd be able to accept that call on Fred's, because that's what, because she's a confidential secretary, so she could take a call like that. She might have to coordinate.
Yeah.
I see that in the job description.
Nicole, did you have a?
I did, yes. You had mentioned that, obviously this is a new position. How do you plan on paying for this position if it wasn't budgeted? Did you
Through
mention something about
retirement,
that?
savings in retirements.
So there would be no ask for the districts.
That's what I mentioned.
I just want to make that clear.
Other questions? Let's call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Just the 4. I don't know if that matters.
John, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It passed, so we'll,
Okay.
John,
that we
just
don't have to
said
split.
before, you can be on a record, that, so
Sure, we can add that, but
I'm
can split
approving it either way.
although reports,
You
superintendent.
technically have to pull that out and re-vote, Tim?
No, it's only-
We can separate that out.
I think you have to pull that out and re-vote.
Sub-item number 4 for voting purposes.
You care that much, John?
Yes, he does.
Okay,
I think
then
he does. I wouldn't.
what's the process
So
then?
we'll take items,
Sorry, John.
everything
I would
except for subparagraph 4 and vote on that first. And then
Do I need another motion, a second?
it's all motion.
So 2 votes for the same one.
Right.
Okay, so all those in favor of 1, 2, and 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries 8-0. And all those in favor of 4,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed? Very good. So that's 7-1.
That sounds
Thank
good.
you. Without a motion second, that's interesting. Very good. Superintendent's report.
Mr. Emmerich was not able to be here this evening, and when I talked to him this afternoon, he did not share anything that he needed to report.
Okay, very good. You talked about already the last PAC meeting already, in our study session in regards to the building, because that was a question that came up last year. That was all PAC waited on that, so that was good. Then director's report.
So I've submitted my report. The items are consistent with month to month. The roundabout continues on. We're working on a design for a retaining wall. The renovation status, we had a report on tonight from Chris. The hybrid schedule for us is working probably better than well because we're having these cases pop up. The way that we're doing our AB schedule by program means we've got an adjacent lab and theory room that are available for us to spread into. It's working wonderfully. The RCTC, something that the JOC was interested in, we have now completed the emissions and inspections certification testing for all of our seniors last year who didn't get a chance to have that testing because the COVID shut everything down.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So we're done. And then the ECTS operations section, we're continuing conversations about electromechanical drone. And the other items in here are really just report outs about when things are due and how they're coming along. There's no surprises. The school is running, and it's interesting because the transmission and community spread of COVID is rising, and we're seeing it here, just like you are in your school districts. So that's my report.
I want to make something. We had, Director, we had our Zoom meeting for electrical engineering. I attended that, and that went real well. It's every fall we get to talk with the individuals during committee. I don't know exactly.
Advisory board.
Advisory board.
It's called the Occupational Advisory Committee. We're required to have one for each program.
And I attended by Zoom, and it went well. We're supposed to get some paperwork that was signed, but since we weren't there, we haven't got that paperwork that should be receiving, so they get a copy of it. And so they want to know who attended it. And it went fairly well for the Zoom meeting, and he said he's working on the outside building for electrical engineering. He said it's working real nice. So I want to thank you for the director for getting our teachers to do that, and it worked really well.
Very good. Was there another comment over there?
Yeah, the PennDOT request that he kind of textbook design a barrier. Is that what they said?
Yeah, at the JOC's direction, Tim and I met with PennDOT to continue the negotiations. We were able to get them to agree that probably their initial offer was not going to be satisfactory, and they agreed to come up. And we also put on the table that we wanted to have some sort of retaining structure out front to keep a car from sliding into our parking lot. They said that they would be willing to entertain that idea. And so the way that they wanted us to do that was to come up with some sort of a design that we could hand to them so that they could consider options on how to make it work, if they were going to make it work at all. And Tim, I'm happy to take any other guidance that you have.
So I think the idea was that if we know what we would like as a barrier wall, why don't we come up with the idea of a barrier wall? And also, it would probably be something outside that they would have constructed, that we would construct. And therefore, we would provide them an estimate as to that cost. And they would pay it as part of the consideration for the project.
What's the right of way off of the roundabout? You know, like what is their proposed space that comes in the front yard?
There were stakes out there at one point to the edge of the right of way, but I don't know. If
I
there's
don't remember what the number measurement is, but it's staked right now. And it comes 150 feet from our parking lot.
It still is?
On the far edge of this parking lot.
I said, yeah, that's the edge of the road. It's not the edge of the surface, it's the edge of the right. So there is.
But is that what you're saying? What's staked out there is 100 feet or 150 feet from the
I don't
parking
know
lot.
what the dimensions are off the top of my head. I provided that.
But
again, that's
bottom
right
line was
away.
that the barrier would be on our property, away from the right of way. It was the barrier, we would provide them the design, we would provide them a cost, and then they would consider that part of the.
Well, Dell had an idea of what he wanted, correct?
Who?
Dell?
I had an idea what I wanted, and then Joe
Somebody
and I
had an
agreed
idea
on
what
it.
they
Yeah, so in essence, what we want is about a 3-foot wall, chiseled face brick, or chiseled face masonry block, and 2 columns on the ends to keep it anchored into the ground, and then backfill it so that we can mow it for low maintenance. And then that way you'd have roughly a 3-foot wall with a cap on it that a car would have to clear if it was going to slide off and come up toward our building.
And the goal, and part of that goal was that they would leave the soil or move the soil, they have to move and leave some of the soil back to them, reducing their costs and benefiting us. And so they
Yeah.
weren't, they did not agree to do this. They just said, all right, it's an idea, we're willing to do it, and let's entertain it. So we said, fine. Stop there and we'll entertain.
Do you have an idea of what that would cost?
34 million.
It
Wouldn't
probably
that be
could
nice?
take-
We've
They'll
been,
say no.
we've been working on this, and part of PennDOT seemed reasonably open for us to float an idea. And so they're going to have construction equipment here already. So the idea would be they would open the trench and then fill it with compactable gravel. And then we would bring in a mason to lay the brick, and then they would backfill it. And what we're not sure of at this point is the length of the wall, because we're not sure on the costs. We've been having contractors in here, and Dell had 2 more contractors in here today looking at the site, and they're preparing estimates on what it would cost, assuming that the ground was prepared and they were ready to walk up and lay brick.
So are you talking about a solid wall, or are you talking about wall sections?
No, in my mind, I want to come in here with a solid wall that's about 3 feet high with a cap on it. That would go about as long as we can afford, which would be something less than, it's going to be less than 200 feet.
Right. I'm just wondering if we came to them with that number and they oppose it, which is totally possible, that if we could break it up into sections so that it's maybe the same, maybe enough to cover everything, but we eliminate like 3 feet here, 3 feet, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's all going to come down to machine time and
Right.
preparing the ground and digging trenches and compacting gravel. So it doesn't matter whether it's in separates or in one solid piece.
Well, the
But they
cost of the
seem to-
masonry,
I'm
the
sorry?
cost of the masonry and the.
Yeah.
building would be less.
So I think the interesting thing was they didn't say just no right offhand, and they said, well, let's, we can consider this. Show us what you're talking about.
Which they did before. They shot it down. pretty
I was
quick.
gonna say, they said no out of hand last time. if I'm not mistaken,
Request denied was there.
Right.
So their bid was, what was it, 40-some thousand dollars?
43,000.
This wall is gonna be expensive.
That was good.
I don't think we're gonna come out ahead on that.
Well, we're not committing to anything. They said they'd entertain a conversation. And so my challenge at that point was, how do we get that conversation done without commissioning an architect to do it? And so we're working now in the combination of local contractors without having to go to an architect. But Mr. Buxty here, with his conversations tonight, somehow got Chris Coughlin agreeing to somehow get involved with it. So I'm not sure how that's going to go.
He could do some pro bono.
That's
He
exactly
can
what.
definitely throw us a bone.
And he said he'd be more than willing to do that, so
Oh, there you go.
we just have to remind him.
When we
Worst
get
case
billed.
scenario, we get some big balls and put them outside.
Well, that's going
That
to,
did not come out right. I'm sorry. We get
don't
like
worry.
the target.
That's all right. We'll segue right into the solicitor's report, so I don't forget them 2 months in a row.
There you go.
Okay, so the other thing, just to follow up on that meeting, they agreed to the condemnation route as opposed to school district route. We made a counter proposal in regard to the per acre amount, the 12,385 compared to their 9,500. 12,000 is what we used to sell the other parcel based on all the appraisals, and then bumped it a bit because of one of the pieces of property that they used in their appraisal. And then we asked for $4,000 in the very
So they haven't agreed to that either, but they haven't
How'd that
denied.
work out?
By statute, they have to pay us the 4,000.
That's something.
So don't pay us the 4,000. Plus at least 43, plus maybe the sign on the wall.
Can you have that bill a little bit?
Yeah, so if we get all that, we'll be probably pretty happy. That's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Principals report.
Joe, you back? Hello?
You still there?
Hello, Joe?
Here I am. I appreciate you looking at my report. There's some things that I highlighted and read in the report just for you to understand that things that happened last year could happen this year. As you see in the NOCTI pre-testing, that was very important for us last year. And then when you go down to the OAC fall luncheon, I wanted just to see that the first time that we did a Microsoft platform, and as Dennis already mentioned, I thought it was pretty successful. Again, it was new to us, but I thought it was successful. And finally, I'm going to turn this over because I'm real proud of, Sandy Carr and Lisa Scalise have been leading our instructors in the plans for our remote instruction progress. So again, you'll see a tracking progress that Lisa's going to address right now that's attached here.
Thank you. So this form that you're looking at was designed to show the changes that the teachers made from the end of July through the end of September in response to everything that needed to be done because of COVID. And you can see in the first column the things that were accomplished prior to students entering our building in order to be prepared to teach them remotely. And all of the things bulleted there were multi-step processes that our teachers had to learn and implement. And then in the second column, you can see the things that related directly to getting our students on board and understanding what was going to be different with both remote and in-person learning and routines in light of COVID. And the third column highlights some of the ongoing challenges that we continue to face with our current system. And I really put this together for our instructors. What I'm hearing from them a lot right now is that they're feeling like they're barely staying one step ahead of the students. We are not typically a 50% theory, 50% hands-on type of school in our programs. It is much more hands-on, sometimes 90-10 in some of our units. But our current situation forces us to be 50-50. So our teachers are working hard to figure out how to provide really meaningful content on those remote days and maximize their in-person days, especially knowing that half of the NOCTI is hands-on and can't be ignored. So they're feeling like they're barely staying a step ahead of the students. And I put this together really for them because I wanted to show them just how very much they accomplished in the first 2 months up to mid-quarter of the school year and give them a chance to look back and reflect on what they've accomplished because they're so busy looking ahead and continuing to learn in order to create a positive learning experience that I don't think they realized quite how far they had come. And this is all, of course, in addition to all the typical things that have to happen to launch any new school year.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Any questions for me? All righty, takes us to statute-related business. I don't see anything there that requires a motion. So 12 is supplemental reports, as we're used to seeing there. Any new board action items? JOC board remarks and comments. Anybody have anything for the good of the whole?
Sam, I was asked that we kind of had a remodeling with Rick being our superintendent. Him and I both give a little report every month. And one of our board members asked why the tech school hasn't sold off any of the land yet. And I didn't have a good answer to that. The 140 acres that are up there. And are we collecting rent from somebody farming it?
I can address parts of that, but not all of it. Somewhere in the history of the school, the farmland that is behind us, now there's more land back there than can be farmed. There's some wetlands back there, but there are 2 fields that are farmed. And my understanding is that that is an exchange. You take care of the land in exchange for us not having to take care of it. And I think there's like $1 a year fee for that or something. Terry, I don't know if you have any other information on that.
No, that's correct.
Pardon me? Okay.
They pay us $1?
It's just a land maintenance agreement.
Who's it being, who's farming it?
Oh, I'm one of the local guys, but I don't know local farm.
I don't remember his name.
None of us know a name.
That's something that's been in place long before I ever got here.
I know, just wondering why the LaBeouf taxpayers just want to know. That's a lot of, that's
I
a lot of land.
think we
in
can
some
get,
township.
I think we can get a name for it. And Jim and Tim have a lot of history here. I recall one bill, I think when we were preparing to sell it for the 911 center, where we had to bring in and pay quite a bit of money for somebody to come in and brush hog. And I think at that point, I don't know if it was even maybe preceding that, that's part of the deal is they're taking care of all that land that really doesn't benefit them as, in essence, payment for utilizing the usable.
There was a portion of the property that was not being used for the, as part of the farming situation that went to seed and also basically became a wetland. It cost us a lot of money then to go back and have it cleaned up and dried up and not be a wetland. So the idea of the arrangement with the farmer is that he does maintain those fields so they are still valuable to the vote back. And if chosen, could be sold off in the future. I think the reason I haven't sold off the property in the past is because it's not a property and could be used by the school district for whatever purposes the school district wishes to use it for. There used to be a school down there, there used to be a fire school, there used to be other uses of the property. They're not being used at the present time. But that's the idea why they don't sell the property.
So in lieu of us paying to have it mowed, he farms it and then takes care of it.
Takes care of the other that's not farming.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And he rotates the field, so it's not every, it's typical farm. He rotates the field.
The name of the gentleman is Wasilewski.
Thanks, Joe.
I
Joe, how long is the contract for?
Andy, I'll be honest with you, it's been in place. I'm not sure the particulars. We'd have to research it for you. But again, it's been in place for as long as I've been here, 13 years. And prior to that, because Eldo Jackson and I used to discuss that quite a bit, as Tim might have mentioned there, I couldn't hear him. At one time, the Pennsylvania State Police were looking at that land to bring their centrally location up here. But again, that conversation fell down because of wetlands and things of that nature. But again, it's been in conversation, but it's been in place quite some time.
I don't think there's any written document, or if there is, it has an indefinite term that
Renews every year.
We can stop it on the year.
I have the copy of the contract in my office.
So there is a contract. Is that renewed every year?
I believe it had an automatic renewal on it, and as long as there wasn't any issues with it, it just continued.
I think the only clause really in there is the fact that we can't take control of it until after the crops have been harvested.
Well, that makes sense, yeah.
So it's a year to year.
Who was it just talking that said they had the
Dell.
contract?
Dell has it in his office. So Andy, I guess the question is that something that your taxpayer or your board is interested in looking into for sale? Is that what you're getting at, or?
Yeah. They want tax base. I would say we're gonna get ourselves in trouble because for Gerard Township, Gerard School District, the conservatory is buying more property out of our place and we ain't getting no taxes for it anymore. I mean, I don't like that at all. And I mean, I would tell the conservatory, don't buy any more property out of our Gerard School District because we're losing money. They just bought another couple hundred acres out of Gerard School District. But you think I could go to Erie County Council and say, get the conservatory heck out Erie County, you know what, I'd be tarred and feather in 2 seconds. They'll be buying this property in 2 seconds, don't worry. We try to put it up for sale, the conservatory will be buying this property and you won't get nothing anyways.
Well,
I suppose the other deal on that was if we started making money on that property, we start having to file taxes.
Well, right.
Then that
If
Under
we
the-
use it for educational purposes, you know.
Now, there was something in there that we.
There's UBIT taxes.
If we started
Under the-
leasing it to other entities, to be used for business purposes.
Well, yeah, like the farm.
It's no longer being used for educational purposes.
So the downside of selling it would be that we could possibly sell it to somebody who wouldn't end up paying taxes on it anyway.
Could be.
And then,
We wouldn't have
what's
control.
the upside of selling it, I guess, is my question.
Upside is you get money.
We could get some money, but I mean,
One
how much
time.
would we get? It's a one-time infusion.
You know, I mean, we
How
have,
much do we
we have
feel
an
that property's
appraisal
worth is
of
my
the
question.
land at 12,000 an acre.
12,000 and 13,750, I think were the two appraisals, they're both 2006 appraisals.
Those appraisals though were for smaller parcels. The land cost goes down when the land size goes up.
Right. So what's the value of that property is my question.
Is it
You'd
landlocked?
have to get a whole nother appraisal.
Yeah, I
to do
don't
that.
think that's been,
Did you ask if it was landlocked?
Yeah, is it
No,
landlocked?
it's 1,000, there's 2,800 feet of frontage on Pagan Road.
Is that landlocked?
There's road all the way around.
Well, I mean, this road out here only gets about 200 feet of it, but the west border is Pagan Road. Goes,
Pagan Road goes down and then goes 90 degrees from there.
Goes down to the right, that's all up there.
So what are you thinking, housing development? What do you,
half-acre lots, how much are half-acre lots in Summit Township?
I don't know, probably 30,000?
Yes.
So I mean, it's an interesting proposition. The question is, how do you, I don't know that I want to spend money for, an appraisal type deal. If a land developer came to us and said, hey, here's what I'd like to do. Tim, why don't you walk us through the process? Because I lived through, even when another government entity bought that. What's the process? We talked about it a month or two ago with there's a process.
The sale of unused and unnecessary property. So the operating committee would have to make a determination if the property is unused and unnecessary for the future. And we obviously have to have all the school districts approve that because they are the actual property owners. So you talk about a resolution for every school district. Assuming that can be accomplished, and everybody agrees to that, and you determine what amount of property you want to sell. Then you would have to get two appraisals to determine the value of that property. And then you attempt to sell it, obviously. Once you got an agreement with someone, based on those two appraisals, you would file a petition with court, have court approve the sale. That requires a public notice, it requires a hearing, it requires testimony of the two appraisals. That the court makes the decision whether to approve it or not.
So the short answer is it's
Bottom line is
possible.
it's gonna cost you $20,000 just to sell it.
It costs you about $5,000 at least per appraisal.
So really, where that's possible is if somebody had an interest, instead of us saying, hey, we want to sell this, go hire a realtor, then you're going to do all that. If you had a developer or somebody come in and say, here's what I want to do, would you consider selling? I think then we could entertain that.
Right.
And it makes sense because now you've got
Probably
you've got some revenue.
Plus, you would pass, I would pass that cost on to them
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
if you want to sell it.
Does that make sense, Andy?
You got a developer, Andy?
I think you have to look at your long range plan.
$20 this year. We've already hired 2 new people. That's another $300,000 in labor burden. I'm just telling you how people feel at Fort Bluff School District. We try to keep our taxes down low. That's at a Union City in Northwestern.
we're trying to catch up.
We haven't done that by just being sticklers. We've done that by being creative.
I think I'm open to the idea, speaking as one person, I'm open to the idea of selling a portion of it. I think just like we talked about with the roundabout, I think there needs to be some barrier. When you're talking about 130 acres, there's a lot of barrier there. You know, I don't want to develop this, 200 feet beyond this back parking lot.
Right.
But we could come up with a reasonable amount of space that if we ever wanted to expand, not that it's on the drawing board now, if we ever did, you want to save some room, but we probably don't need. You said
So how far does
130
Bacon
acres?
Road go when it turns on that 90-degree angle? How far, what's our frontage on Bacon Road? That way?
It's right at the McCain. It's right at the McCain boundary.
One side and the other side.
So we're all in Summit Township. Interesting. Any other,
I'm just gonna give you the market value in a minute. Go ahead, Sam.
oh, you're coming up with that. Good for you. Any other board remarks or comments?
Oh, I will say one thing, I did float past the idea of a drone at our meeting, lots of interest. So, it was
Security drone?
the security drone program that Fred was talking
Well, the
about.
reason that that will work, packaged the way that I've talked about it, is because the program that it would be classified under is electromechanical engineering technology, which is plastered on the Northwest PA high occupation.
The only question that we had, and I brought it up, is, can we find a teacher to teach it that's gonna not making, 3 figures a year someplace else?
Well, that's always going to be the challenge.
Yeah. So, but yeah, lots of interest in that one.
Andy, you got anything for us?
Got a number?
Tim, what's the going rate on an acre?
13,000.
Well, it depends if you're breaking it into small lots.
Half acre lots. 152 times 13,000.
My lot is 100 by
2 million.
2 million. Wow.
1.97.
What's your commission?
He's gonna donate that to the foundation.
That's just frontage lots on Payne Road.
I was gonna
That's
say,
not a development in the back. That's just 300 half acre lots on Payne Road.
that's not them building a road and making more.
I mean,
Not that?
the subdivision over here, they haven't even expanded. There's a whole section over here that's a expansion they haven't even started on yet.
Okay, we'll bring us a
There's plenty of
proposal,
lots
then we
of
can move on.
For sale.
Until such time, let's adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Terry.
We can assess another meeting.
Excellent. We're not gonna set it up. We don't know where we're going. We'll see. We'll send out emails, talk to people. If we get to that point where we're ready to have one, we'll do that. Those on the renovation committee though should be prepared sometime probably in a couple weeks here to have a meeting and start going over this. But blessings, you all. Have a great Thanksgiving if we don't see you before. And stay safe.